Okay, so as we continue to work in our crop management aspect, we're going to continue to work with the Missouri management, or excuse me, manure management planner. Even though we're not necessarily, we may not have manure on your farm. Some of you working independent on your own farm. It's a great tool, a nice piece of software to really get a lot of good crop information put in there, particularly as we look at managing nutrients. And that's key to integrated crop management, is manage our nutrients more than anything else. We deal with other things other ways, but nutrient management is the biggest thing there. So this works good for that. Even though it says manure, we're going to use it for a lot of the things we're doing. So where we're at now is actually calculating soil erosion, and this does it very well if you get the right information in there. So I switch over from general to crops on this manure management planner, and in crops, you put your crop rotation in there. Again, at the college here, we're using continuous corn silage through everything with a cover crop. We'll take care of that here in just a minute. One thing we need to do here is put in a yield goal. And from your crop manager interview, hopefully you've got a general idea what they're getting for yields. If they're getting 180 bushels per acre, you might want to push that a little bit next year, maybe 5 to 10% more next year than you're getting this year. You like to get a little increase. Our crop manager said 25 when we were interviewing them. I'm thinking that's pushing it a little bit already, particularly brown midrib. And some of the other things we got going. So I'm going to stick with 25. So you can kind of do some estimating there on your own history. If you had yield maps and we don't on this farm, that'd be easier. So first thing you're going to do is just go down, put your yield goals down, and you notice when I did that, it actually tells you how much nitrogen you're going to need there. Go all the way down through all your fields and get your yield goals in there. And I'll pause while I do that here. Okay, so I went down about 25 tons in everywhere. Again, the yield units, obviously with forages, corn silage and alfalfa, it's going to be in tons. With your grains, corn, grain, and soybeans, it's going to be in bushels. Same thing with wheat, it'll be in oats, it'll be in bushels. So make sure your yield goal per acre on that column agrees with the yield units you're going with there. So I got that in first. And if you've got alfalfa, by the way, another thing it's going to ask you is what % legume stand is in there. So if it's a good alfalfa stand, you just say it's 100% legume. If it's an older alfalfa stand, and maybe the first year it's 100%, but you get down to the third year, maybe it's only 75% legume and there's a bunch of grasses in it. Because it does kind of affect how much nitrogen is going to be in that soil for that next year. If you're just straight in corn, no problem. If you're straight soybean, just call it 100% because we really don't have anything else there. It's usually with hay fields that we want to get that percentage in there. Otherwise, we're not going to worry about that too much. My next step is the Russell. So I'm going to, up here on top, I'm going to click on this Russell 2 button, and that's going to open up another screen for us. Now, most likely, you will not have a database selected. Mine already is because I was just playing with it a little bit ago, but I'll show you how to get that database. That basically was in your Missouri Clipper when you clip that. So if you come back to when you download the Missouri Clipper, mine it now says SMB data 98. Whatever, or 89, whatever your Missouri Clipper file was, that's where that data is at. But it's zipped up right now because we are actually able to import it into Map Window as a zip file. Well, you can't use it as a zip file in the Manure Management Planner. Too bad. So anyway, it's fairly easy to do. I just hit the right mouse button on my mouse, and there are a couple ways of doing this. Here on campus, we can use 7-zip. A lot of people with Windows 10 computers will have extract all. They'll have some way of unzipping. Every computer does. Some may have WinZip on it. I'm just going to use extract all because that is really the most common on computers. And here's the path it's going to go into, which again, it's going to go into my ICM folder, into an SME data folder. That sounds good to me. I'll just extract and let it run. And then the little screen comes across, and now we've got another folder down in here at the bottom. And you see this one no longer has a zipper on it. Inside of that will be my database now. So we can close that. That's all we needed that for. Now I'm going to go to select. And again, I'm going to come back here. Here's that SMD data folder that I just unzipped. And there is that yield database that I need as we go with it. So we're going to open that. And that'll be ready. That'll select that. And that'll find a lot of the data we need to do the calculations for the soil erosion. So give it a minute to get that selected. It may or may not actually locate your climate location, your soil survey when you do that. Some automatically do, some don't. In my case, it did not. So I'm going to click here on select and go to USA, Iowa, and Winnebago counties where we're at up here, and click OK. Same thing with the soil survey. It may or may not have got it. If it didn't get it, we're going to have to come in and tell it what soil survey I'm working with by clicking the select button. And again, Winnebago County, We'll click OK. So that takes care of that. Here it's got this information already from the map window software, slope length, rock cover. We don't have any rocks on this farm, but if you had a lot of rocks, you want to put a number in there, percent. Most people are not going to have to worry about that. We do not have any subsurface drainage because we didn't put any practices in for subsurface drainage, but if you had put an in tile on your map window, that probably would show up here. Contouring, I got one in here already, but you're probably saying no selection on yours. So when you first come in here, well, I don't go, it says assume up and down the hill. I don't farm up and down the hill. That's not a good practice, so we don't do that. We do have a little bit of a contour, but it goes straight along the side of the hill, so it does go downhill sometimes and up to as there are grades in there. So I'm going to say absolute grade of about 2%. In other words, what I'm saying, it varies a little bit, about 2%. Get a little more particular, I can go out there and actually analyze it, but again, for this class, we're not going to get into the full details of running this thing, just learn how to use it. So 2% is kind of a good guess there. It's going to hit a lot of our fields. Strips we don't have. This field won't have diversion or terraces on, but we do on another field, and we'll talk about that later on here. We're just going to work with this SHP plot number 1 at this point. Residual burial, we're not going to do anything there either. So now we're down here to corn silage, and we need to select kind of management we do with that. So I'm going to click the select tool. And there are lots of options in here when we look at things and go through, and it's going to actually select what we're doing. So you see nothing here, but if you expand to CMZ here, you got single year, single crop templates, or multi-year rotation. Now for those that use a rotation like corn, alfalfa, go to this B selection here and pick something out of there. For those of you like us, which are continuous corn or continuous corn silage, even corn soybeans would be in the rotation. Well, in our case, and again, same process, you're just going to pick from a list, okay? You just have a great big list down here of a lot of different things. Every time there's an arrow there, you have to expand it. Well, single year, single crop, we are a row crop. I'm going to expand that, and then I've got different choices here for row crop. Well, we're corn silage, okay? And I'm actually corn silage, not corn silage narrow roll, but I'm going to go to narrow roll for a reason, because if I go to corn silage, this is everything in there, but there's nothing in there for cover crops, okay? I'm not sure why they haven't done that. Maybe in the next updated software they'll put cover crops in that database. But if you go down here to narrow roll corn silage, which is like 15-inch rolls, we do 30s, but then you'll see they actually, if you scroll down, have a place for cover crops. So I'm going to use narrow rolls for my purposes because that matches closer. So you may not find something that matches exactly your crops. Find something close. And it may take a while searching around to find it. So I'm going to come corn silage after mid-October. I'm going to put in some cover crops there. So I expand that. Now I've got some choices there. We don't put anhydrous on here because we get almost all our nitrogen from manure. We're going to come down here to corn silage, no-till, after rye, cover crop, zone 4. And then when you do that, you'll notice down here, I get all the operations that go into that. The fertilizer application, the sprayer, the planter, the sprayer, harvesting again. Everything but manure. And we're going to deal with manure later. And it may recalculate when we deal with manure later, but right now we're not going to deal with manure. So we'll click OK on that, and that'll put that down in here. You can customize and edit that. I don't suggest you do that because I've tried that before and it kind of screws up the formulas. So try and pick one of those that's really close rather than customizing. I might have to research a little bit more on this to figure out how customizing would work on this. So anyway, that one's done. All my crops are kind of the same once I've got in there as far as this year, okay, so 2020. So if I just want to duplicate it, every 2020 rotation the same, I'm just going to click here. And I'm going to say all fields with the same crop rotation are going to get this information because all these fields in 2020 are the same. Fine. If not, I'm going to say, well, you know what? SHP3 was not this, SHP2, so you can actually come in here and again, looking up your crop rotation, it's going to take you a little time to do this. Select the fields that have the same type of management and rotation in it. But in my case, since everything on this farm is treated the same, I'm going to say all fields have the same rotation. I'm just going to click OK, and it'll duplicate it, as you see, to all 13 fields there. It does not duplicate it for every year, though. So that was year 2020. We go to the next year, you see there's nothing in there. So again, I go in, I select, and duplicate. So I do that for each of the years, just like I did with one. I'm going to go ahead and pause and do that for the rest of this and then show you where we're at. Okay, so I went through an error on 2023 for SHP1, And if you just hit up the arrow, there's 2022, same thing, 2021. So again, you need to actually select different things if they're different in those years with your crop rotation. So it takes a little bit of time to do that. And then if you go through the fields, you'll notice through all the fields as I go through them, it's all the same there. Now, we have one situation here, and if I go back to my map, and actually for those of you at NICC, we have one more thing I forgot to tell you to do, is when we did the conservation practices, we forgot about the fact that we have some terraces. And we do have some terraces back here in this back field. I've turned off everything else, but I did put in terraces as a practice. It's a 600 practice. And I did draw in this terrace here. There's another terrace. There's basically about 3 or 4 terraces. You can kind of see them from the aerial photo. So you'll need to draw in those terraces, but Field 2, and this is Field 2 here, has terraces in it. It's the only one that has terraces, but it does have terraces. So that means when we come to our Manure Management Planner, when we get to Field 2 down here, and I'm just going to go to Field 2 now, Field 2, we have a dispersion, and I put that in here. One parallel, so I'll just go ahead and show you how I did that. Select, come in here, and we're going to have one parallel outlet terrace. I actually had a 1% grade on it. Not sure what it's at, but that's kind of what I selected there. For that one, make sure it's the same for each crop on that, and yes. So I've got a terrace put in there. So you'll need to put a terrace in there on Field 2, those of you in NICC. Those of you anywhere else, if you have terraces, yeah, you're going to have to add those in as a practice on those fields too. So it's easy to come back and add things in, by the way. You don't have to redo everything because you forgot to do that. My original didn't have it in there as we did that. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I just want to click on this check data button to make sure I've got everything entered that needs to be entered. When that comes up, yep, it looks like I've got information in there. You may get a warning message that'll tell you something, which means you got something to fix. For example, if you had not put the yield goals in, it would tell you you need to get all your yield goals in. Maybe that there's a message that doesn't know the crop. Well, maybe there's one field or 1 year you didn't complete. So this is going to check that everything's complete, and it's going to show you the actual soil loss that it calculated. I could do a report, but I want to report for all the fields, not just this one. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this and go ahead and close out of this. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to come into the tools, and this is what you're going to have to turn in for me, and I'm going to shrink these down because I just did it to make sure it worked. So when you first come into tools, you probably come in as reports. What we're going to do is come over here to custom, and we're going to come into this document maker thing for right now. And here we're going to look for individual tables of crop and pasture data. You said, well, geez, how do you know that? Well, I hunted around until I found what I wanted, okay? So I'm going to come into individual crop, and here's my predicted soil erosion. So that's just the individual crop table, and I want to get the predicted soil erosion. I'm going to run the custom tool. When I run that, you may get a message that says you need to save first. Just click OK. That'll resave the document before it prints it out. And when it's done running, then it's going to give me a Word document that's got all the information in it as far as what I want and what I need. When it's all done, this is what you're going to get. And hopefully we've got this information. We don't have any wind or irrigator or goalie ephemeral. It's just calculated water and sheet on this operation as we've worked at it. And you can go down, and this is what document you need to submit for this assignment. So hopefully you didn't find it too difficult. Kind of a tedious assignment. A lot of information you had to enter, particularly quite a few fields, but good information, very useful to us. And with that, I'll end this recording.